Thank you everybody for being here. And what we'll do is, I discovered this topic pretty much about the same time as you did. So we'll try and keep this really interactive. It's an interesting topic and there's a lot of stuff that we've been doing at HCL and a lot of learnings we have. But what I wanted is, as we go through this, if you can also contribute, share your experiences, ask questions, so that will be good. So let me start with a couple of stories about how is the future of marketing changing. And these are some personal learnings. So first story is, last year I took the family for a holiday to Phuket. And I was looking for hotels. And there were lots of properties who had done huge amount of advertising. So the hotel industry is very good at retargeting. And as I searched, I got lots of ads, lots of banners, lots of things popping up. But then I went to TripAdvisor, and there, one of the early hotels I checked out is called the Avista. I don't know if any of you have been there. You've stayed there? And when I went to the review section, I found 3 of my Facebook friends had reviewed that hotel exceptionally well. I did not check any other hotel. I looked at none of the guys who had retargeted me. I went and did my booking at Avista directly. It was not even a discounted price. So story number 1, there's a lesson in that. Story number 2 is again a very interesting story. So discovered as at HCL we were doing a deal there, but the IOC, the International Olympics Committee, I don't know how many of you are aware of them. They're based in Geneva. They control the Olympics as a brand. And the way they manifest the Olympics is, every country which runs the Olympics sets up a local organizing committee. So in this case, this was just after London. So London had a LOCOG, London Olympics Organizing Committee. Everything done on the Olympics is done by the LOCOG. So when the London Olympics happened, there was a mobile app. This mobile app was downloaded many millions of times, many millions. And within months after the London Olympics was over, this mobile app stopped working. So when the Sochi Games happened, there was an entirely new mobile app. Does this somewhere sound wasteful to you? Because if many millions are already engaged with me on a platform, to lose it sounds quite scary. The third story that I have is from music. So how many of you have heard of Gautier? Guys here know Gautier? So we're just doing this year's Grammy. Last year Gautier was the big winner. He won almost everything. And Gautier has a song called, do you know his famous song? You, sir. What's it called? Yeah. You like that video? So it's called Somebody That I Used to Know. Now the story is, there's a band I'd like you to check out, all of you. You can write it down. It's called Walk Off the Earth. Walk Off the Earth. Gautier's Somebody That I Used to Know has about 70 million views on YouTube. Walk Off the Earth covered the same song, and across the various manifestations they have, so many people have uploaded the video, that video has over 300 million views. WOTE is what the vote. Now what they did in that video is you'll love watching it if you're a musician. They have the whole band standing around one guitar. And the drummer is on the side playing the guitar body. The bassist is standing on the left side. So have you seen where strings move from the guitar into let's say the twist? He's playing that bridge. The rhythm guitarist is sitting here, and on the bottom 3 strings he's playing the rhythm. The bassist is standing from behind and playing the 6th string with his thumb. The lead guitarist is playing the 5th and 4th string. And the whole band is singing. Now I wanted to put this third story in context, because this story for me brought alive something Seth Godin talks about. Many of you read The Purple Cow? right? So, anybody want to offer what the key thesis of the purple cow was? Because like most management books, it's there in the first 3 pages. You don't need to read the other 200. So I'll tell you how I see it. You know, the key thesis of that book is very interesting. What Seth says, and this is my, let's say, transliteration. What Seth says is, if you're driving down a road and you see the most beautiful cow in the world, what will you do? You'll keep driving. Well, cow. But if you're driving down the road and you see the ugliest cow in the world, but it's colored purple, what will you do? You'll stop, you'll take a photo, you'll tweet it, you'll put it, I saw a purple cow. Seth's premise is very simple. He says it's not about how good you are, it's about how remarkable you are. And the definition of remarkable is exactly that. Can I make a remark about it? I just made a big remark to all of you about Walk Off the Earth, and I'm sure many of you will go and check it out. That's the nature of storytelling and messaging today. In effect, as marketers, we've changed from advertisers to publishers. Historically, we guys used to be damn happy doing a TVC, hiring an agency, getting a media plan, and as long as I can shove that ad in my consumer's face at least thrice, my job's done. I can go play golf. I don't, or in my case, play with the band. Now, my best hope is I will design a story, hand it over to you, and hope and pray that you will share it with 10 others. And that's an entirely different mindset. So, you know, with these 3 stories, I just wanted to make these 3 points. So I'm going backward now. I wanted to make the point of remarkability. If I go back to the previous story, to the first story, the Avista story, I wanted to make the point that the traditional AIDA model in marketing, awareness, interest, desire, action, the guys who have spent $1 gazillion doing all of that stuff to me, lost because somebody played the game in the zero moment. And that, I think, is a big thing we all need to think about. Guys who are mastering the zero moment, which is that the moment of epiphany has now shifted far before you encounter the product. Guys who attack the moment then are beating everybody else hollow. But most of marketing still remains on that, let's do this artillery shelling. The second story, which was the Olympic story I talked about, is the power, is the problem that most brands have, that today we spend money acquiring and reacquiring the same guy again and again. Everybody does that. Whereas if I could just acquire you once and retain you as a community, speaking to you is free. And all I need to do is understand how to communicate with you. So these, you know, if you link these 3 stories up, technology makes it possible to solve all these 3 that I've talked to you about. At this point, and I'm going to tell you how it's possible. In order to tell you how it's possible, I don't have a PowerPoint. What I like doing instead of a PowerPoint is all of you have these little pads on your table. If you can each take a pad, take a pencil or a pen, I'll help you draw the solution, and there is a solution. But before we go there, on these 3 learnings that I've shared, are there anything anybody want to add or any other questions? Because as we move on, that's going to be important. Yes, please.
So I like what you said about traditional masters are all about artillery shelling, which is just marketing. Perhaps more so because it has a direct impact on business and commercial aspects of the brand of the organization. This new thing which we are all here because we are a fan of that. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Is there a way to gauge the impact of this new style of marketing on maybe consumer, brand, and ultimately?
Much better. So there are ways, and we'll talk about it. Good question. Anybody else? Yes?
What do you mean by community? When you said technology which enables community? Because I have observed that sustenance is very important for you.
So let me.
Most of the time, brands come from the ROI perspective and say, because they really want civilization, not conversion. And they should mention the brand, not the peripheral topics that we're talking about, or not the interface topics. So it's a catch-22 situation. If you recommend community, then you need to also give us something in brand.
Let me give you an example. Are all of you aware of Mondelez?
Yes.
So Mondelez, Oreo has the world's 10th largest Facebook page. They have 45 million fans. Very unfortunately, marketers still talk about Facebook likes and right, sorry, followers, etc. But let's start from that point. So let's say Oreo has 45 million fans on Facebook. Now, what are the brands Mondelez has? They've got Toblerone, they've got Dairy Milk, they've got a suite of brands. Do you think, is there any brand that doesn't target you or me? I buy all their brands for my kids. Now the beauty is, if I was Mondelez, what I would be thinking is, if I've got 45 million people hooked with just Oreo on Facebook, and I don't want my community run on Facebook, can my marketing goal be to create a billion-strong community of Mondelez consumers across my portfolio of brands? And if I can house them in a platform, let's say, and let's not go to what that platform is, and then I can do analysis on that platform, and then I figure out that for Oreo, the biggest consumption, one of the biggest triggers for consumption is moms bake cakes for kids using Oreo. Then what I do is, I get a campaign designed, which is a cake baking recipe competition, and launch it into that community who anyway opted in on my platform, signed in, opted in for email, whatever it is, talking to them is free, and I engage them. So the point is, if I'm going to engage them in an irrelevant fashion, what you said is right. But between my portfolio of brands and my consumers, there is a value creating relationship. That's why you give me money. If I can focus my campaigns around the nature of that value, I'll have a community. But unfortunately, this sort of thinking, and we'll come to that, because to my mind, the real leverage of technology in marketing has more to do with mindset of marketers than with what technology can make anything possible right now. It's a mindset issue. Any other comments, questions? Yes, please.
But how did Mondelez get to 45 million followers?
No problem. My only point is now they are spending the same. Once I've got that, I spend that money.
Once you have the base,
Then you work on top of it. And yes? Yeah. Which is the point I made. Don't let somebody else own your community. If I have a community, like to me, the Olympics app is a community. If I was in the Olympics, what I'd do is I'd make that app into a platform, get my sports people, my advertisers, sponsors, consumers, everybody. Imagine a virtual reality app of the Olympics, which you can experience through the year, where Coca-Cola, as one of their advertisers, is advertising to you in that virtual reality. Sports people, when they're running the 100 meters, they're saying, today in the practice I ran, here's a small video clip. You as the consumer, you can experience. It just, if you just think about the community and the touch point. So one of the concepts I use to do this is what I call a user value chain. That if you take your business value chain and attribute every user, the user, take Uber. Uber is a classic example of a user value chain. The taxi driver is also a user. Remember, they didn't think that through very well, and that's why what happened. So if you can do that, you can actually connect everybody. Anybody else? Yes, you.
One of the things you raised about the locals is the point of having a large community and keeping them loyal for a long time is still bordering on old school approach, which is once a customer stays a customer. I think there's a flaw in that process, which is why we had companies constantly chasing these loyalty programs and saying, I will loyalty. The paradigm is shifted. It's no longer you building a band of loyal customers. It's what, if there are customers who stand for the brand, how does the brand stay loyal to these customers? Make you a promise and you come on to me, how do I fulfill the promise time? Right? To me, it also sort of, it's a dichotomy there, because I believe the rise of something called as the temporary unique. So the London Olympics app became popular because of something that came into the euphoria surrounding that for the World Cup app. It ceased to have any value to me once the World Cup is over. I continue to be a cricket fan, but I'm no longer attached to the topic. Right? So you will have those swings. And
Yeah.
And the ability to move this is saying, do I create a sports app, instead of creating a World Cup app, is probably a solution to retaining those set of people, common to everyone.
So, I think it's a great point, and I think therefore marketers need to think about engagement. And there's another very story I like a lot, which is BarackObama.com. And I think the Aam Aadmi Party took a lot of lessons from what Barack Obama did. If you went to BarackObama.com in its heyday, that site never asked you for your vote. It said, do you want to create a change? If you want, we'll give you loads of material, posters, banners, call your community together. You guys have a discussion what needs to change. Write back to us. We'll engage in a dialogue. Now, what the Aam Aadmi Party did here is they said, if you want to fight corruption, give us some money. We are the minute they never asked for my vote, but if I gave them money, I'll give the vote as well. If you engage me, I will stay with you. But if you make our relationship transactional, there's a problem. I think Harley Owners Group did this brilliantly. Forget all this digital loyalty community. Look at the hog. The hog has been at it for 50 years, and they have made it commercially viable. They have led engagement. And this brings me to the key point, which is between marketing and technology, there is a layer which is the critical success factor in making this possible, which is the next part. Look at the marketing ecosystem. All of us grew in an ecosystem which prized creative and media. These are your two skills. If you were good in operations or technology, you never grew. The solid ops guy in the marketing ecosystem would come at 9 o'clock, very diligently do a set of transactions at a level of quality. That is, those are guys who were never celebrated. They didn't grow. So the marketing ecosystem today consists of brilliant thinking, great ideas, very poor execution. And the answer, therefore, the middle layer is operations. So if you don't have an operations engine, so I'll give you a campaign we did last year, which has won lots of awards. We did a campaign called the coolest interview ever. You can check it out, hashtag coolest interview ever. On Twitter, we ran for 5 rare skills roles globally, including things like data scientist and all the roles you hear in the technology space. We ran for 5 roles, a recruitment process entirely on Twitter. From the application to the hire was done on Twitter. And therefore, if you do hashtag coolest interview, you can experience that process. The way that campaign ran, the total spend I had on that campaign was less than the average cost of hiring one person in HCL Technologies. The campaign numbers are as follows. We had 88,000 applicants from 120 countries. 340 million impressions were delivered out of this campaign. Business Week did a full story on it. It was huge. It's won, in DMAI itself, the Echo Award. This is the campaign which won, etc. I spent less than the average cost of one hire. It has dramatically changed our receptiveness for hiring rare skills in the new age. Remember, IT company, rare skill doesn't think IT company is for me. .NET, J2E, some commodity skill they'll go and hire, so on and so forth. Now, why did that campaign work? And Business Week in their story wrote this. Not one tweet on the campaign was not responded to within a minute. 1 minute response time on every tweet. So imagine 88,000 guys applying, interviews running. We also had reverse interview processes. So we had interviewers sitting on Twitter answering candidate questions. So we did all that kind of stuff, 1 minute response time. Because the ops backbone we placed under that campaign, at the end of the day, we are an IT company. Operations is run with a framework called ITIL, which gives you incredibly robust stuff. We ran an ITIL level process to back-end a Twitter campaign. That's it. And that usually is not there. So the process of allowing marketing to enjoy technology is something we call digital decoupling. Decoupling. You got to decouple. You got to play, horses for courses. So if you have a sheet of paper, let me just give you the solution. We call it the ZCMO, the CMO in the zero moment. So if in the middle of your page you could draw a box, that's the start point. Just draw a box bang in the middle of your page. How much time do I have left? 10 minutes. Okay, we'll close it in 10 minutes. So if you've all got this box in the middle, write inside this box the word campaign. And the start point of finding our solution, or the way we define this offering, because we define this offering in conversation with 45 CMOs globally. So the first thing we did is we drew this box and we put a big cross. So now you can draw a big cross in this box. We said this is not our play zone. This is where a Wyden and Kennedy plays. This is where a Mindshare plays. This is where all those, this is not our skill set, and why would we even want to do it? We said, what will make this box more effective, given the 3 lessons I talked about, or a couple of insights I talked about. So we said, let's draw a box on the left-hand side of this middle box. So please do that. And we called that box Analytics as a Service. Now let me give you an example of analytics as a, there are lots of offerings. I'm not going into those details. But how many of you use Radian 6 for social listening out here? So my Radian 6 report, incidentally I stopped using Radian 6. I have an in-house tool now. But my Radian 6 report, very expensive. You spend a lot of money. But my Radian 6 report for HCL Technologies used to be 800 pages. Have any of you read your Radian 6 reports, actually? You read it? You've got no choice. So the problem, and this is where operations comes in. We have a client in the US for whom we do something called, we call it the corporate listening office, part of this offering. We do a blue book. There are 9 identified consumer segments. Every fortnight, we have a team who will scan all their social media listening tools and give them a report on segment by segment, changes in thinking, anything else. They have been able to very effectively use that to design cross-sell and upsell. So from a bank, they've started selling car insurance, etc. But the point is, again, so remember, if you want analytics to improve what's going on in that campaign box, technology tools aren't enough. You need a bunch of people sitting, using those tools and making them intelligent. So that's one. Right-hand side of the box, we drew another box and we call that community as a service. So if you take the example I gave you of Mondelez or Olympics or anybody else, this is where we design offerings which in a multi-channel context enables a brand to engage. And remember, the multi-channel is not the big deal. It is the engagement of a community which is a big deal, and there are lots of tools, but at the end of the day, the people who sit at the top of this box are what we call multi-channel community engagement managers. It's a special breed of people. So as an example, for one of our pharmaceutical clients, we run a program where, that's in India actually. So India is maybe the world's largest diabetic population. So we run a program for their diabetic patients, but the program is not for medication. It's for lifestyle, it's for diet, it's for all those patients who reach out and say, I'm living my life XYZ, what should I do? And we have agents who handle that whole thing. Bottom, there's the last box, that's the third box, which we call content as a service. Because remember, if I'm doing great analytics, analytics is revealing to me 50 campaign opportunities, like we talked about the baking cake example. And I'm running this mammoth community to whom I have reach, but I'm going to, my content requirement now is going to explode. To run zero moment marketing will require 1000x the content I was used to in traditional marketing. So here, it's not just an act of content platforms. There are lots of technology. Adobe, for instance. Many of you may be experienced on CQ5. There's a platform called Sitecore. There's Drupal, which is open source, and so on. But what's more important is there's a bunch of people who require a technology platform to do what I call content rendition. So Wyden and Kennedy can do Thank You Mom for P&G. Breakthrough, great campaign. But once Thank You Mom, the rubber hits the road and you play in the zero moment, it will be rendered into 1,000 different banners, 100 different change management communications, concepts, rules-based, but work that's required for which you don't have to pay Madison Avenue. You can't afford to pay Madison Avenue rates. So that's something we do exceptionally well. So we have actually built a technology backbone for people to sit on top of, just to run a content operations. We call it a content management utility. And I can tell you there's a lot of content that in marketing we do, which is just wasteful. It is repetitive, etc. So now if you think about this whole concept, what you've just drawn is what we call the ZCMO. We take our clients, we tell them, hang on to your marketing ecosystem, it's fantastic, but as you move towards the zero moment, let us build these operations platforms to enable analytics as a service, community as a service, content as a service. And these are global platforms. If I'm doing social listening for you, I can't do it in India or in Dubai or in Switzerland. The advantage then that becomes is for global companies, remember, that box in the center differentiates by geography. You'll have separate agencies in India, something else in Europe, somebody else in US. But if the three platforms are run globally, your ability as a brand to start controlling many of the outcomes that your brand gives. So there's an additional control advantage that global brands have by using technology and operations. So that broadly is what I wanted to talk about. Any questions? Yes, please.
Just going back to your future capex, cost of wire here, I'm presuming that cost is what you're attributing to what you spend on the Twitter platform.
That's correct. The rest was people, my people.
So if you take into account the cost of reaching out, which is a tweet being responded to in a minute, and if you're talking of 88,000 tweets over I don't know what period of time,
4 weeks.
4 weeks, right? You're talking of about 20,000 tweets happening in a week. You actually had a larger task force responding to it because I'm presuming it's not completely an automated response.
No, it was, you can't, see, I don't know if you remember the Bank of America bot issue that happened few months. No, you can't, see, this is the problem. You can't run it like that.
Absolutely. So it means you need to take it off automation onto emotion.
Yeah,
It's creating the human interface there. So what was your cost or the ROI on this when you take into that cost as well?
So we calculate ROI slightly differently. So what we do is, so from a people perspective, we will look at cost per hire. We will look at renegades. Renegades create a, so the way we run it, actually, the way we run our offering, everything we do is on a value chain concept. So there's an employee value chain that we run, which has several metrics, which are all business aligned. We measure and correlate to those metrics. Otherwise, very easy for us to come up with some marketing speak around ROI, which does not, this is one of the learnings we had. Today, CEOs and boards are calling CMOs in to discuss where's the money going and what's happening with it. And CTRs and TRPs and GR, board doesn't understand. What nonsense is this? So the ability for marketers to track back the activity they are doing into business relevant metrics is of crucial importance. And when you get your analytics approach right, you're able to do those correlations quite effectively. That's something we do a lot of. And nowadays, certainly, anybody who says 50% of my budget is wasted, but I don't know which 50, has lost his job with that statement. So,
This is also the transition from ROI to ROMI, right?
ROMI, correct. Yes, please. You should come and do the session. Go ahead. Sure. Right.
And community is something that develops over a period of time. So it's more like a long-term brand.
That's correct.
In the short term, brands are focusing on creating good content and finding a handle around it. Now, when it comes to content creation, if you're lucky and you crack this amazing thought that can potentially go viral, which probably happens 1 in 100 cases, what happens in the remaining 99? Where first you've created something fantastic, but till the time it has not reached out, it's only sitting on your desktop, which means that you have to park a significant amount of your marketing budget on creating that content instead of doing the traditional marketing, which will give you guaranteed return. And then you have this thing which will surely raise your brand equity, but you don't know whether it will give you the other kind of results. So how do you tackle those challenges?
I think, so that's what, if you look at the three platforms, you've actually built for yourself an intelligent organization which will learn. So remember, in the digital world, there's no Superman out there. And you will keep learning and you will do things. You have to have high fail rates. You have to be able to exit very quickly. So in digital, the way we think about it is, you know the MVP concept. So whether it's content or whatever, I will quickly put an MVP on the table, see how it's doing. I'll junk it if it's not working. If it's working, I'll start a virtuous cycle which says, how do I need to improve and keep improving? So unless you have continuous improvement built into the way you're operating, this model doesn't work. And that's again an operations construct. Unlike, say, traditional marketing, I took a bet. I made, a $6 million film, a complete bet. I thought it was good. The agency said it's great, great, blah, blah, blah. That, to my mind, that is not guaranteed return. Traditional marketing is more like gambling. Whereas the concept I have described to you, you can do small little experiments, proof of concept, build on things which are successful. It's more organic.
On the content piece that you talked about, the layer at the bottom, how have you guys solved it? Have you kind of insourced the capability or have you also with some partners?
No, no, so what we've done is we first build, so we have a sort of product we've built, we call it Impress, which starts from demand management. So it's run like IT. Starting from demand management to service creation to cataloging, the whole thing runs on a platform. So that you are able to do it in a highly efficient and productive fashion. And we also hire the kind of profiles who are required, whether it's graphic designers, copywriters.
The kind of talent that you're hiring into marketing.
That's correct. And in fact, if you look at my marketing, I anyway run an organization called Team 360. I don't really outsource our own creative. It's an internal shared services, runs as a P&L. So my head of Team 360, who is to be with FCB Ulka, Narayan Shankar, Narayan runs a P&L and he charges. So in companies like ours, HR, for instance, consumes huge amounts of marketing services. Everybody consumes, right? Sales guys. So everybody consumes, they get charged. This team can hire more people if they are running at a profit. And nowadays they are running so profitably, I redeploy their funds into my advertising or whatever I do. So it's a good model.
You charge out every BU and every...
Everybody gets charged, everybody. Yeah, please.
I just wanted to know, you talked about decoupling. How to go about decoupling different layers of technology integration? How to go about it? Is there any method to it?
There is, but you have to see, there is actually the way we do it is there's a target operating model which is fairly complex. And you have to do a workshop to look through the target operating model, how you will approach it. But in effect, there's an operating model you can put on the table, which is where you will get to. How you get there, you will have to design. It's a bit too complex to answer in like 30 seconds. Yes, are we done?
I guess so.
Okay.
I guess so. I know. The moment you see, someone with a mic like this, it looks pretty ominous. But then I have a job to do. But having said that, even for an outsider like me, it was really a very interesting presentation. From being good to remarkable, making that jump, as well as really giving out pragmatic tips to situations. Let's really hear it for Krishnan Chatterjee. Thanks a ton for starting off this creative stream of conference.